Hello my friends. I'm going to take you through the construction of an aquaponics composting tower that I'm planning on using in my greenhouse. My initial plans is to revamp this existing tower that I built for growing strawberries, which worked very well in the beginning of the summer, but as August rolled by, everything started drying up, including the tower. Now I scrapped the idea of that tower because I drilled drain holes in the bottom of that tower, so I'm going to use a brand new barrel and do a completely new tower. Now the seals on these towers were too tight to remove by hand, so I had to use a framing square which fit perfect, and my pliers were a leverage, and it works well. Nothing like multi-purpose tool. After removing the caps, I'm taking these flower pots and going to trace its circumference over these holes. Of course, the barrels were wet and the Sharpie wouldn't write on a wet barrel. These holes are going to be used for a wicking reserve at the bottom of the barrel, and the flower pots are going to be inserted in these holes, and that's what's going to dip into the water reserve and create the wicking action. As I'm cutting these holes, I'm staying on the inside. I want the hole to be about a 1/4 inch less diameter than what's traced. That way the flower pots won't drop all the way through the holes. Perfect fit. Now, second hole, same thing. Now I'm going to remove the top of the barrel. The top edge of these barrels are always extra thick, and a longer saw blade should be used so that you're sure that the blade is penetrating all the way through the plastic. I'm having a little bit of trouble because it's so thick and I didn't change the saw blade out. When you shut your saw off, don't remove the saw until it completely stops running. That way you save from breaking or bending your blade. Now this top's going to be put aside for later. When I built my first grow tower, I made a template for drilling holes so that I wouldn't have to do the layout more than one time. I found that I ended up building probably a dozen towers for friends and neighbors. There's a top marking for this on this template. Now I'm trying to locate it. Now I'm ready to install. The drill template is secured to the barrel using one of these ratchet straps. The template has holes in it to guide the drill bit. There are 49 slots that have to be cut into the barrel. At each slot there's two holes, a start hole and a stop hole. The drill bit that's being used is large enough to allow the saber saw blade to fit into it. There will be 98 holes drilled total. The last few holes being drilled. Here you can see all the holes drilled in its pattern. Notice that I'm turning the saw on and off so that I don't damage the blade. Next step is to find some empty wine bottles. So first place I look, second place I look, this one looks good. Back in my shop, propane torch out, heating the barrel. The plastic is soft enough when you can see a gloss on the barrel and it starts to deform on its own. This is the one that we're looking for, number 49. The wicking bed needs a water reserve. I decided that it should be 6 inches deep. Using a 5/8 drill bit, I'm drilling the overflow hole. The plastic is softened around the hole so that an overflow spigot can be inserted. What I'll use for a spigot is a funnel-shaped standpipe that's left over from my bell siphons. Heating the plastic up softened it that I could press the oversized pipe into the undersized hole. The composting will take place in these 5-gallon buckets. I'm going to remove the bottom of one of the buckets and attach the 2 buckets together to make a long center sleeve inside the composting tower. Attaching the buckets together is simply drilling holes around the lip of the buckets and using zip ties. Holes are drilled randomly around the bottom bucket. This is to allow worms to be able to move from the grow medium into the composting area. The lowest holes are about 2 inches up from the bottom of the bucket. I'm doing this to allow water to collect at the bottom of the bucket to keep moisture in the center of the composting tower. Spacers were cut from 3-inch PVC pipe. These are cut at 6 inches in length, and that's determining the level of the water reserve at the bottom of the grow tower. You can use a lot of different items as the spacer. A lot of times I use flower pots instead of these. These are left over from grow beds when I upsized from 3-inch to 4-inch media guards. These flower pots that I just placed are extending down into the water reserve, and these will be filled with peat moss to allow wicking action from the bottom into the growing medium. Here you can see I'm filling the pots now. I'm using a barrier cloth on the bottom in order to keep the grow medium from getting into the water reserve. Also, it should keep the worms that'll be in the tower from getting down inside to the water. I'm afraid that if they get there, I'm just going to be drowning worms and they won't be able to find their way back up into the soil. This is packed in around the bottom and along the sides. I'm going to use more peat moss to hold it in its place, and I'll tuck the peat up against the sides, and I find that I have to cut extra barrier cloth and tuck around the perimeter because there's too much gap between the lid that I removed and inserted in there and the barrel itself. Next, I'm adding perlite to this mix. The tower is ready to have soil added. Barrel is filled, waiting for worms and plants. This center tube is the digester. I'm going to save a 5-gallon bucket lid to keep unwanted insects out and contain any odors. Thank you, my friends. Bye-bye.